So today, March 28th, another hot topic to do is Tuesday. And today we discuss one of the really hot subject matters, negotiation. So what do we do to negotiate? That's the big key. That's what we're going to talk about today. So let's just get in and we'll get this rolling. Come on, work for me. There we go. So essentially, here's what we're going to look at today. Why is it that negotiation matters? What are the tactics, the tools that we should use for negotiation? And then along with that, what's next? What happens? What do we do? So there's a number of key things that we're going to get into with that. And I think we need to know all of us negotiate. Before we got into real estate, we negotiated. Think of it this way. We're out on a drive and we're going to stop because it's been a while since we've eaten. Do we not begin negotiating where we're going to eat at? It's as simple as that. Even the aspect of car buying. If you've ever bought a car, you've probably negotiated. Now, sometimes we negotiated really well and other times we negotiated very, very poorly. In real estate, here's what we know. Typically, we are an advocate for one party or the other, either for the seller or the buyer. We represent either a seller or a buyer. The question is which one do we choose or which one is that? Part of the fiduciary responsibilities we have is to become a skillful negotiator. So representing that part actually does get into that. So what we want to look at today, we're going to look at the types of negotiation. We are going to look at the styles and then 7 key, I'm going to say personal or personality traits that we want to look to. So what would happen if we actually in our business could master every negotiation technique, tactic, skill, but we could handle anything that came our way in regards to something that needed to be negotiated? What would your business look like if we were able to do that? So there are the obvious things. The better you are, the more repeat and referral business that you get. And that's a key. Because if we simply think about it, how many of us love picking up the phone and prospecting every day? And by the way, I know the answer to that, but you got to confess it to yourself. Would I rather pick up the phone or would I rather have the repeat and referral business coming my way? How about commission splits? If you were a skilled negotiator, would you not be able to derive higher commission splits for yourself? We see a lot of 2.5. Now we're one company, so we can talk about this. But we see a lot of agents offering 2.5% out now. Why? Because they couldn't negotiate their own commission. They didn't know how to be able to present that. Along with that, smoother transactions and better relationships. Now, there's this gentleman named Gerard Nierenberger. He's the founder of the Negotiating Institute. The guy he's put together as an author over 20 books on negotiating. Here's what he says. To reach an agreement such that all parties have their needs satisfied to the degree that they are internally motivated to fulfill their commitments and to enter into subsequent negotiations in transaction with the same party. Deep thoughts is what that comes across as. Read that again to yourself. And then I ask, what are the key words that stand out as you read that? To me, it's this. All parties have satisfied. All parties have satisfied their own needs. And there's an internal motivation to actually fulfill all of their commitments. The agreement that we come into. And knowing that if we're all happy, that as for further negotiations are going to be required. Most real estate transactions have further negotiations, that they'd actually still be willing to work with the same party. So 2 types of negotiation. One is the aspect of what we call position bargaining, and the other being value negotiation. Position bargaining, characterized by, I got my notes saying, being adversarial. Having a winner and a loser, because if one wins, the other loses. High stress. No concern for a relationship, because not really worried about what the future is going to bring to it. So it kind of brings it in, it's a take it or leave it. I can tell you, just down in Mexico last week, Cabo San Lucas, if you're ever going to buy, well, for me, it was silver. This is my little deal. I went in with a real take it or leave it. And I believe I did quite well in my negotiations. But when you negotiate down there, that's kind of the way it works. It's back and forth. But I said, no, this is where I'm at. I can't spend any more than this. In it, I used a take it or leave it type of negotiation. I had lots of others to be able to choose from. I didn't need what this particular vendor was offering. It was a great position, but it was definitely an adversarial position. Value negotiating, on the other hand, characterized by attempting to meet the needs of all parties. And just think about which one of these are better in a real estate transaction. Being more flexible, considering the entire offer. So it's not just a piece of it, but look at the whole thing, an overview. It's going to give value to the relationship. But if you think about it, in a real estate transaction, people are going to work together in this relationship for 4 to 6 weeks. It's not good to start in an adversarial position. So if you think about it from an aspect of, I'll give you one thing and in return, you're going to give something else. I'll give you your price. I'll give you your price. You give me the timing. Matter of fact, it could work in reverse. I'll give you the timing. You give me this price. It's one where we want all parties to be happy in regards to negotiation. So the value negotiation in a real estate transaction typically is the one where we really want that to be. Types of negotiation, we've all seen it or experienced it. There's the win-win, the lose-lose, the compromise, or win-win. Often it's a win-lose, but more often than not, what do we end up with? Compromise. So a win-lose, one party is the winner, they're happy as can be, and the other is upset, and you got 6 weeks to be able to live with that. I hope that nothing else comes up. Both parties are losers, neither one of them are happy, and you still got 6 weeks to work with each other. Of course, the compromise is a big key. I went out to buy black shoes, but they had what I wanted, but it was in brown. I got the shoes I wanted. I just didn't get the color I wanted. Still think back to my wife with a travel trailer. Quote unquote, you're getting everything that you want and I'm not. And it was as simple as this. She wanted a different color in regards to the furniture. She was not going to be happy and I'd have to live with her for the rest of my life. Not a good thing. We ordered a new travel trailer that had what we both wanted in it. Price was not the issue. So that would have been a compromise, but it wouldn't have been a happy situation. And of course, the win-win. We know that that's where we want to go. Let's see, let's move on. Here's the 7 traits. By the way, this is about an hour presentation and I'm going to try to accomplish in 30 minutes or less. Now, I'm going to go through these one by one so that you can see all of what we're going to be dealing with. But let's start with number 1. It's the discovery questioning. It's about asking questions. What you guys have heard from me coaching many times is this. whenever you're telling, matter of fact, write this down if it doesn't sound familiar. Whenever you're telling, you are not selling. The only time you're selling is when you're asking questions. And when we take a look at negotiation today for the rest of this, that really comes into the point where it's making a great deal more sense. So we're going to ask these power questions, and what does it do? It's building cooperation and trust. It's obtaining useful information, because up until I know what's really important to somebody, it's hard to do a great negotiation that ends up in a win-win until we know what each party is looking for, what they want. You're going to clarify any fuzzy thinking when you're asking questions. You see, don't go with I believe I know what they're thinking. Go with I know what they're thinking. Don't leave it fuzzy. Don't think you know that you know. Ask great questions to clarify that. It'll also help you uncover what's missing, the missing information, what's important to them when it comes to the negotiating, solving the problems. And of course, there's a gap between, as I put in my notes here, between the have and the want. I have to have versus I want to have. We ask great questions, we can find out what the difference is. And it could be as simple as, hey, Linda, what's important to you? What's most important to you? Open-ended questions are the real key. If you happen to be one of those that you see negotiation as a battle, you're probably going to have more difficulty in regard to negotiation. When you're battling someone, your mind is not going to be able to think as quickly as it otherwise would, the way that you would want it to be. So keep it away from the battle and get into the point of solving the issue. What's holding them back from moving forward? So ask some key questions. Now, I put it down this way. The open-ended, you're seeking that additional information. Set any judgment aside. Whatever they say, don't begin judging what they're doing or what they're trying to accomplish. Be respectful of them. Don't provide the answers. I'm negotiating. I need to know what's important. If I tell them what the answers are, well, one, you risk the aspect of, well, that was stupid. Why would you think? Now, you don't say that, but you might just as well have. How about formulate questions that invite the exploration? So as an example, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what would happen if your house doesn't sell? Because we're not just talking negotiation regarding a buyer and seller, or between a buyer and seller. We can call it negotiation when we're just looking to help a seller make a decision as to whether or not they do sell. And this question would be one where it would come up for price. It's not selling. Let's future frame this, because Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what would happen if your home doesn't sell? And of course, ask multiple questions. Strengthen the understanding. Not to where I'm guessing, not to where it's fuzzy, but it's like, okay, nope, I got this. Many of you remember what we call the response pattern. I'm going to give that to you here in a little bit. But let's move on to question number 2, or key number 2, contextual listening. That's actively listening, hearing what they're saying, but taking it beyond the words that they spoke. Contextual listening goes much deeper. So we can listen internally. We hear, but now it's on our agenda. There's the aspect of focusing on another person's words, as I've mentioned, and then contextual, it's the full listening. Not just the words that they're using, but as we all know, communication goes in a lot deeper. So people will communicate the tonality. They will communicate with their body language. We know, we've talked about, just because somebody folds their arm doesn't mean that they've just tuned you out. It may be a very comfortable position for them. It could be that their hands are cold. Look at their eyes. The eyes really will be the window to the soul. So when we talk about contextual listening, it's go beyond the words. Don't go into your own thought, but try to understand and appreciate their position. Now, backtracking, mirroring. Many of you will think of the response pattern that we coach you on. To repeat, acknowledge, and ask another question. The response pattern is a huge part. We are repeating the information that we've heard. We're looking for key information that they've provided to us through this conversation. And then in the end, we're simply going to ask for agreement. Now, we're going to take this a little bit further with the aspect of mirroring. Mirroring is just a repeat, but we'll also know that silence is something that's going to come up. So I wrote this scenario down, so I'm just going to read what I put down here in my notes. An agent might say, I don't think that will work for my clients. Okay? Here's a great negotiating thing. It will not work for your clients? Right now, you're all sitting there thinking, what am I going to say because of the dead silence? But what I did was to invite them to tell me more about it will not work for them. So what happens with that silence? They give you additional information, such as, well, they were not expecting a lot of repairs. A lot of repairs? Say it in such a way that it is a question. And then they do something like, well, they don't have a lot of money and need the money for the closing or from the closing. So here's what we got in this example. We can now see that we can craft a counter that can potentially look at closing costs over repairs. But we know what's important to the two parties. We can come together and end up with a win-win situation. Key number 4, owning the objections. And it's kind of like owning the verbiage, the dialogue, the scripts. When we own them, we're that much better. We're that much more natural. It's because we've internalized them. So here's some of the things. I look at this, there's a old way of remembering how to handle an objection. And it was CDDC. CDDC. Clarify, dignify, discuss, confirm, and close for the agreement. Clarify, dignify, discuss. And by the way, discussion is around the solution. So with the discussion is about a solution. And the benefits of the solution. People don't buy things, they buy the benefits of those things. So it's the benefits. We don't buy a steak, we're buying the sizzle, that flavor, that smell. Close for the agreement. If we're not good at owning the objection, understanding, and we stumble, as my graph puts up here, trust. Can I trust this person? Are they strong enough? Are they the right person to be able to take care of this? It's going to reveal, well, your lack of skills. And then, of course, the doubt sets in. Is this really a good thing? First-time home buyers, they don't need weakness. They need somebody to know they can trust, respect, and they'll do just about anything you tell them to, but you have to build that. Owning it, inspiring the trust, demonstrating competence, and of course, builds the confidence. Your relationships are going to be a lot easier when you have it done that way. Now, the next thing that I put out here, we need to remove the personal pronouns. Depending upon your questions, you're going to come across adversarial, and they'll do this. Some of you that just like really hurt because I did this. It's a stop sign. It's universal. It's whoa. They become very standoffish. As a matter of fact, if they were holding their cards here, they're now like, they don't want to show you anything because they can't trust. How do you end up with a win-win when you're missing that? So remove those, because if we were to say, well, how did your client come up with that price? Well, how did you and your client? Because now you're talking directly to that individual. That's just like saying, whoa, you must have been smoking something when you came up with that price. When we remove that, so what was the thought process that you had around the price? Excuse me. What was the thought process around the price? Now there's no you. It wasn't defend yourself on it. We simply want to know where this came from. Now they may say, well, that's up to them. But remove that and you're going to see a huge difference. Number 6, the aspect of silence. Driving some of you batty with that short window of silence. Silence is a huge, huge thing. Many things happen when we don't talk. But Leonardo da Vinci, his quote here, nothing strengthens authority so much as silence. So use it to your advantage. Silence could signal, as it puts out here, the aspect of displeasure. So somebody throws a price out and you go, stay silent long enough, guess what? They're going to start talking. Well, what would be a better price? That's what we're looking for. The emphasis of a point. Sometimes we just need to let something land. You begin thinking just with that silence, don't you? Could be that it's just a loss of interest. Silence could be a loss of interest, and of course, working through a second option. If somebody's doing a second option, guess what? Let them think, because that's what the eyes are doing. If they sat here like this, there's no thinking. That's pretty much a displeasure, isn't it? However, they're thinking, they're working through options. Well, what could we do? What's their situation? Let the silence occur is where I would take you with this. I just want to make sure that I covered all that I wanted to with that. Yes. Key number 7, emotional neutrality. Separate the person, separate the emotion, separate all from the problem. Get rid of the drama. Here's what we know. We're going to have to deal with the drama from our sellers. We're going to have to deal with the drama from our buyers. Don't bring the drama in on your own. I had an agent call me yesterday, and it was because of an unfortunate situation, without going into detail, that happened after the closing and before possession was given. What does the other agent do? Totally emotional. You, liar. All of this stuff is coming out, and the agent had nothing to do with it. It was our agent who was receiving the abuse, couldn't do anything about it. And yet this other agent, totally into drama. Well, listen, when they're in drama and they're telling you, I'm going to put together this addendum and you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that, things don't go well until we can get the party we're negotiating with to a straight level, two adults talking back and forth. So that's what we're looking for. And of course, remember this, in negotiation, now let's talk communication, because we got to have the communication to talk negotiation. Most of you have been with us before. What % of communication is the words that we use? Do you remember? 7%. Words we use are only 7% of communication. 38% is the tonality, how it sounds as we say those words. And the last is 55% is the physiology. So now let's, thinking of that, look at negotiation, or even to the point of presenting an offer. Because in presenting an offer, that's typically where the negotiation begins. What's the best way to be able to do this? I've just written an offer and I'm going to send it over to Kelly. If I just send it to her, is that the best way? Or should maybe I actually call her? Because you see, if I just send it over, there's no me, there's no you, matter of fact, it's just a piece of paper. That's all it represents. It doesn't represent the human being. As a matter of fact, if I don't talk to her, it doesn't represent a human being on her side. If we just send it back and forth. And from an aspect of communication, how much are we missing because of the way that we're handling it? If I use the phone, well, I've got 7%, the words that I can use as I'm communicating with Kelly. I've got the 38% because there's the tonality, excuse me. So I've got, I believe 738 is 45%. I went to a small rural community school. I'm not good at math. But I believe that's 45%. You're missing 55% of the communication possibilities. So maybe what we should look at doing is presenting all offers face to face. If you're in a point of strong negotiation, or you need to have some strong negotiation, get face to face. It's the best way for two parties to come up and have a win-win negotiation. Go back to the point of contextual listening. 7, 38, and 55 can only be accomplished when we're face to face. In full contextual listening, that's when we're getting 100% of the communication. That's when we can think outside of just what the words are saying. So that's what I've got for you in all of this. And I'm just going to open up and, oops, let me do this so that you guys don't get tripped out by that. Let me take a look. Let's look at the chat session real quick. Is there anything out there? Mothers know oh, that's a great one, Holly. It really is. Mothers know the power of silence when correcting a child's action. Right? Yeah, I got moms in this room and they're all nodding. That really is a great point. And I think that can go for all of us. Well, I'm showing 12:31. Let me just, are there any questions out there that anyone has that we've got to throw out? And I'll let you know while you're thinking about that. Obviously, we're going to have lots to be able to watch and listen to later on. As this will be up on YouTube. Bella here, my assist, does a great job of making sure that we get those up. So I'm seeing nothing popping up. So guys, we'll call that an end to another Hot Topic Tuesday. Next week, send me ideas. This one came up yesterday. Actually, it came up a few weeks ago, but I got blessed with something to help me out and to be able to deliver to you. So guys, I'll call it from that. Have a great one. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.